Hey everyone, welcome back. Today's deep dive is something a little close to home, especially if you're in or have a connection to the Asheville area.
Oh, definitely.
Gotta be honest, thinking about this one has me craving a steaming mug of, I don't know, apple cider, maybe a pumpkin spice latte, something like that.
That sounds about right.
Sitting here picturing the Blue Ridge Mountains as a backdrop because, well, we're talking about the Biltmore Estate after Hurricane Helene hit.
Yeah,
And, the good news is it's reopening.
that is good news.
But as everyone knows, Hurricane Helene really did a number on the Southeast. So we've got some articles here that you shared with me, and let's dive into what happened at the Biltmore and, what this reopening means for everyone.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the things that's so interesting about this is that when most people picture the Biltmore, right, they think of that house,
Right.
that big, grand, kind of untouchable Biltmore house. But the estate itself, as I'm sure many of our listeners know, it's vast.
Oh, huge.
Thousands of acres, agricultural land. I mean, it's got its own entrance road coming in off the highway. To think that flooding could shut down an operation of that scale.
Right. And it really does. 250 fatalities across the region.
Yeah.
Helene was no joke.
No.
It really does make you think how fortunate it was that the main house itself was largely okay.
I think that speaks to, well, first of all, good construction, right? They really knew what they were doing back then. But also maybe a little bit of luck in how the landscape itself kind of absorbed the blow.
Right.
Some areas probably shielding those more delicate parts, almost like a natural defense system in a way.
Yeah. And speaking of a blow, I was looking at the pictures in these articles that you sent me.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to say, some of them are pretty haunting. You read down trees, you read flooded access, but to actually see it, like those pictures of the fields where the entrance road should be completely underwater,
Right.
kind of looks like something out of a movie almost.
It's a stark reminder of, the sheer power that nature has and that we're dealing with. And you're right. The recovery efforts, it's not just about clearing debris. We're talking about, literally rebuilding landscapes.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the human impact really comes in. I mean, the Biltmore, it's a major employer in that area.
Oh, huge.
Huge.
Huge employer. And if you're in the area, if you're local to that area,
Yeah.
you know that.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you don't work there directly, think about the ripple effect. You've got restaurants, you've got shops,
Absolutely.
all of those businesses.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're breathing a sigh of relief now that this reopening is happening.
Yeah. And the fact that they timed it, near the holidays, I mean, that's brilliant. Not just from, an economic standpoint, which obviously it is, but also just for morale. It's like this big signal that things are getting back to normal, that the community's coming together.
Right. And speaking of the community coming together, I saw that they set up a relief fund.
They did.
$2 million.
Yeah.
For both the estate and for Western North Carolina.
Yeah.
That's no small potatoes.
No, it's not. And I think it really, speaks to their commitment. It's a way of saying, hey, we're not separate from this community. We're a part of it.
Right. So for folks who are planning to visit, what can they expect? I did see that, the Christmas decorations, they're still going up. It sounds like that sense of normalcy is still a priority.
It is, yeah. I mean, they're trying to keep things as close to normal as possible. However, some outdoor areas are still closed. I think mainly some of the hiking trails and things like that.
Yeah.
But, they are offering refunds. They're offering reschedulings for people who had, trips planned and can't do everything they wanted to.
Yeah.
I think they're handling it really well.
Yeah, it's good to hear. This whole thing really just, I don't know, it makes me think of all the podcasts I listen to, all the news articles I read about historic sites and how they're dealing with, climate change and the increase in these extreme weather events. It's a lot to process sometimes,
It really is. It can get kind of overwhelming trying to keep up with all the different stories and, the latest research. Speaking of which, have you heard of podcastworld.io?
Podcastworld.io, no, what's that?
So it's this really cool AI-powered search engine, but specifically for podcasts. You can ask it a question, like any question about any topic you're interested in, and it scans through millions of podcast episodes, finds the ones that are relevant, and then actually pinpoints the exact segments that answer your question.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I could ask it, how are other historic sites around the world dealing with climate change? And it would find podcasts about that.
Exactly. It does all the work for you. No more, waiting through hours of audio, hoping you stumble across the answer.
All right.
And then on top of that, there's this other cool feature where you can actually chat with AI versions of certain podcasters and experts.
Oh, wow.
So if you have a follow-up question or, want to go even deeper on a topic, you can kind of continue the conversation in a way.
That's amazing. Honestly, it sounds like a great resource, especially with such a big, complex topic like this.
It definitely makes things easier.
Thanks for sharing that with me.
Of course.
But back to the Biltmore. It's just this whole thing, it really makes you think,
Yeah.
You've got this place that stood for over a century.
Right.
And then, bam, nature throws this curveball that nobody was expecting.
It really is a reminder that, history doesn't just stop.
Right.
The Biltmore story is still being written, just like all of ours are, and how they rebuild after this, that's part of their story now.
And, I think that's something that the whole area can rally around. If you've ever been to the Biltmore, you know what I'm talking about. It's more than just a place, It's an experience. And for those who haven't been, well, maybe now's the time.
Yeah.
Go and support the recovery. Soak in that Blue Ridge magic.
Yeah, there's something really special about that blend of past and present that you experience there. You can practically feel the history, but you can also see how it's adapting to, the present moment.
Right.
It makes you wonder, what will the next chapter hold?
It really does.
For them, for all of us.
Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap things up here. But, keep that conversation going. Let us know what you think. What are your thoughts on the Biltmore's recovery? Have you used podcastworld.io? What other historic sites are you fascinated by? Until next time, keep exploring.